Welcome to all. Today, in this video, we shall be discussing about the LM curve. Now, in my last video, we have already discussed about the IS curve or the product market equilibrium. Here, we shall be discussing about the derivation of LM curve. So, the question may come in two different ways. That one way is the how to derive the LM curve, or the question may come in other way that explain the money market equilibrium. LM curve is related with the money market equilibrium. Okay, so how to derive the LM curve, that will be discussed here, and this is a very important part. A lot of practical applications that is connected with the LM curve. As I said in my last video also, that IS and LM, both, there are a lot of practical applications. So you try to understand very carefully. I will explain each and everything in detail. Okay. So let's start with the how to derive the LM curve. Okay. So that let's start with one very basic questions that was asked to the aims, that the why people demand for money. Why people demand for money? So if we start with the question, why people demand for money? What is the reason? What is the reason for demanding the money? Why people are asking the money? Okay, it's a very basic thing. Now, there are three reasons for demanding the money. According to Keynes, the people are demanding the money for three reasons. What are those three reasons? I will explain one by one. Let's start with the people are demanding for money. The first reason is the transactions motive, or we can call it the transaction demand for money. People are demanding for money for transactions. So transaction motive or transaction demand for money. Okay, this transaction demand for money, that will be denoted by M small t in suffix. Transaction demand for money. Okay. Now, what is the transaction demand for money? The transaction demand for money is basically that our, that the day to day, the consumption purposes. Suppose you want to buy a piece of bread or chocolate or toothpaste. So for that you require the money. Okay, you require the cash money for transaction purpose. If you have to give the cash, then you will get it. So for any transactions purpose, the people require money. They are demanding for money for any transaction purpose, for purchasing, for buying anything, either any goods or services, they require the money. So this is the first reason. And so if we indicate the transaction demand for money by the term MT, and Y, if we say that Y stands for the national income, then what will happen? That if Y is 0, let's say Y is 0, then there is no question, then transaction demand for money, that will be also 0. Okay. So if Y is 0, then transaction demand for money will be 0. Now, if, once again, that if Y increases, then transaction demand for money, that is also increases. Okay. So it's a very simple thing that if you think from the micro point of view, if any person's the income level is increasing, then the demand, that is a very general tendency, that demand for the goods and services also increases. That this the same thing is happening here. If you look at from the macro point of view, that if the national income increases, then the transaction demand for money also increases. This one. Okay. Now that, so if we draw the curve transaction demand for money diagram, it will be like this. That here we take transaction demand for money, along the horizontal we take the national income, and this will be like this, upward sloping. It starts from the origin. Why? Because if Y is 0, then transaction demand for money will be 0. This one. That is the reason why this transaction demand for money curve starts from the origin. And as y increases, MT also increases. So it is, so there is a positive or the direct relationship between y and MT. So this curve is a upward sloping diagram. Okay. Now we say that the second reason that we will see, that is number 2. Second part is, second reason is that why people are demanding for money. According to Keynes, the people are demanding for money for precautionary purpose. For precautionary purpose. So it is also called the precautionary motive or precautionary demand for money. So precautionary demand for money. Now what is the precautionary demand for money? Now precautionary demand for money that we can define like this, that to protect and promote individual interest against aiming some unforeseen contingencies. Okay, against some unforeseen contingencies or unforeseen opportunities, the people are demanding for money. What I said, I repeat once again, to protect and promote individual interest against some aiming some unforeseen. Now, what is the unforeseen contingencies? Now, precautionary means, the precautionary for we want to just protect ourselves. Suppose that any accident takes place. Okay, suppose any accident takes place. So then there's a huge amount of medical expenses is required. Then what the people are doing? They are doing the mediclaim. So mediclaims means mediclaim, the part of money which they are putting in the mediclaim, that is called the contingencies purpose. That's called the precautionary purpose. Okay. So this is the unforeseen contingencies. Means when it will come, when the accident will occur, nobody knows. That can happen anytime. But the people, they are ready for these incidents. So they are keeping the money in their hands, that if anything this kind of situation occurs, then they can actually fight with this situation. Similarly, suppose that one unforeseen any opportunities comes. Suppose that all of a sudden they are getting opportunity to purchase a house at a very cheap rate. This unforeseen opportunity came. Then what they can do, that if they are having money, they can actually hold these unforeseen opportunities. Okay, so that is the reason why I see the people are required money. That is called the precautionary demand for money, just to protect against unforeseen contingencies or unforeseen opportunities. The people, they do hold idle cash. People, they do hold idle cash. So now the precautionary demand for money, that we can indicate the precautionary demand for money by, say, MP, precautionary demand for money. P stands for precaution. Okay. Now, if y is 0, then precautionary demand for money will be also 0. If once again think from the micro point of view, if someone income is 0, then there will be no question of that holding the idle cash for precautionary purposes. Okay. So if y is 0, then MP will be 0. Now, if similarly if y increases, then precautionary demand for money, that also increases. Clear? This one. As y increases, then what will happen, that if the people earn more, then generally what they are doing, they are holding more money as or hold the idle cash for the precautionary purposes. It's a very general tendency. So the diagram will be same as before, like this. If you consider this P here, that if y is 0, then MP is 0. As y increases, MP increases. This will be. So it is also a direct relationship, just like before. The transaction demand for money and precautionary demand for money, both are having a direct or positive relationship with y. So now what the Keynes did, that since both are having the positive relationship with y, then Keynes that add these two. So according to Keynes, what the Keynes did that MT plus MP added, and it is called M capital T, MT. This is called the total transaction demand for money. This is called the total transaction demand for money. This one is the transaction demand for money. This one is the precautionary demand for money. And this M capital T, it is called the total transaction demand for money. Okay. Now this is a function of Y. This one is a function of Y. So MT is also function of Y. Clear this one? So MT is also the function of Y. Now the third reason that why people to hold money or why people are demanding for money. The third reason is very important reason, and that is a detailed discussion is required. The third reason. Okay. So let's see this one third reason that why people are demanding for money. The third reason we see that the third reason is speculative demand for money. The third reason that why people hold the money, the speculation purpose, speculative demand for money. Now the question is the what is the meaning of the speculation? What is the speculation means? Speculation means that actually that when goods purchase and sale, when the goods purchase and sale that is made for gaining profit due to the speculative differences of prices at different time periods. At different time periods. Suppose that the speculation in that in the stock market or the bond market that most of the things, the price of the stock and the bond that is guided to the speculations most of the time, the psychologically that if someone is speculating that okay in the near future the price of X bond or the stock that will increase, so the demand for that particular stock or bond will be much more at present. That is a kind of speculation. Okay, so that when the goods purchase and sale is made for what purpose? For gaining the profit due to the speculative differences of the prices. Okay, right now it is 100 rupees. After 5 months, that it will be 200 rupees. Let's say it will be double. That is kind of a speculation. So when the time changes with the 6 months differences, the price of the bond or that particular stock that will be double. So what would be the speculation? If this is kind of the speculation of the people of the or the investors, then they will purchase more number of stocks, that particular stocks or the bonds. That is the reason why the people are holding the money, the speculation purposes. Okay, so that this is called the speculative. So people they desire to hold idle cash for speculative purpose. So people desire to hold idle cash for speculative purpose. For speculative purpose. So people desire to hold idle cash for speculative purpose. If they are speculating that after 6 months the price of the bond or the stocks that will be double, so they are ready with that for a speculation purpose. Okay, so that is called a speculative demand for money. Now, according to Keynes, assets, these are of two types. According to Keynes, assets are of two types. Assets are of two types. Assets are of two types. What are the two types of assets? Now, A, that is called that is bonds or securities. Bonds or securities. And B, that is called idle cash. Idle cash balance, or we can say the liquid money. Liquid money. Idle. So, according to Keynes, According to Keynes, the assets are of two types. What are the two types? Assets. That means the people, they can hold their asset, entire asset, in two forms. Understand it very carefully. This is a very important area to understand. That people can hold their entire asset in two forms. What are the two forms? Either they can hold their asset in bond or security form. They can purchase the bonds or they can purchase the securities. That is the way they can hold their assets. Or they can hold their asset in cash form, idle cash or liquid money form. Or they can hold both of them. Some asset in form of bonds, some asset in form of idle cash balance or liquid money. Okay. Now you know that bonds, if the people are holding bonds, then what will happen? Or if the people are holding idle cash, then what will happen? So let's see that if the people hold from bonds, there are two types of gains are there. From bonds, two types of gain. Two types of gain. Okay, what are the two types of gain? Number one, that gain from interest. Gain from interest. And number two, capital gain. Capital gain. What is that? What is this? Now, if the people are holding their asset in form of bonds, then holding the bonds, they will get a certain amount of interest from the bond. Okay. So obviously they will earn some interest for holding the bonds. So there is a gain from interest. So they will get interest from the bond. So this is one kind of gain they will get. Now another one is a capital gain. What is the capital gain? Capital gain means the difference, the prices of a particular bond at two different time periods. Difference of the prices of a particular bond at two different time periods. What is that? Suppose at the time when he purchased, an investor purchased the bond, that time price of bond was 10 rupees. Okay. When he purchased the bond, that time price of bond was 10 rupees. So 10, but now when he is selling, then the price of bond becomes 15 rupees. Okay. So at the time of selling, price of bond becomes 15 rupees. When he purchased that time, the price of bond was 10 rupees. So what is the difference? Difference is the 5 rupees. These 5 rupees, this gap, this 5 rupees, it is called a capital gain. Okay. That means if the price of bond will increase in the future, then the difference will be positive. And this is called a capital gain. So, if asset holders hold their asset in form of bonds, so there is a possibility that he may earn capital gain. He obviously will get the interest from that, so interest gain will get it, but there is another chance that he can get the capital gain. But simultaneously, there is also a chance the price of bond may fall in the future. Then this will be called a capital loss. This will be called the capital loss. So just like the price of bond can increase in the future, similarly price of bond may decrease in the future. Then it will be called the capital gain, like capital loss. Capital loss. So these possibilities are there. Now, that what will happen? Suppose there is no capital loss. Okay, there is no capital loss. Then what will happen? Gain, capital gain, and interest gain. So two gains. An asset holder are getting two gains for holding their asset in form of bond. Okay, so that is the one cases. This is another case that can be that suppose the capital loss but interest gain. But interest gain is overshooting the capital loss. Suppose interest gain is 100 rupees, capital loss is 70 rupees. Then what will happen? That if we add these two, there is a net 30 rupees gain. Still, the asset holders will prefer the holding their asset in form of bond. Okay, but there is a simultaneously another possibility that if the capital loss is overshooting the interest gain, then ultimately overall loss will be. Okay, so these three possible cases are there. for holding the asset in form of bonds. Okay. Now that another case is that if the asset holders hold their asset in form of idle cash balance or liquid money, then what will happen? If the people hold the asset in form of liquid money, then there is no interest gain or interest loss or that from that idle cash balance. That if a person is having suppose 5 crore rupees and he keeps 5 crore rupees in his locker, then he will not get any interest out of it. After 2 or 3 years, that 5 crores will remain as 5 crores. Okay, so there is no interest gain or loss for holding the asset in form of idle cash balance or liquid money. But for holding the asset in form of bond, these two chances are there. Okay, so you must be very careful about these two things. Now, that what would happen that if we look at the relationship between speculative demand for money, that we will be indicating it by L, small l. Speculative demand for money is indicated by small l, L. Okay. Now we will see that the relation with price of bond with the rate of interest, that we will see this. Now we will see that another thing, that there is a relation between the price of bond, price of bond is denoted by PB, price of bond, and the rate of interest, and rate of interest which is denoted by R. Okay, price of bond and rate of interest are inversely related to each other. Price of bond and rate of interest inversely related to each other. Related to each other. What does it mean? Inversely related to each other. That means if R increases, then price of bond increases. Or if R decreases, then price of bond increases. Inverse relation between the rate of interest and the price of bond. Now you may be wondered that why inverse relations. Just I'll give you a small example for your understanding. Let's say that a person, when he bought a bond, that time the price of bond was 1000 rupees and the rate of interest was 10%. So rate of interest was 10%, price of bond at that time was 1000 rupees. So how much return he will get it out of it? So his return would be 10,000 of 10%, 100 rupees. This will be his return. Okay. Now suppose the rate of interest of the bond has fallen 5%. Clear? Now to get the same return 100 rupees, that the person will hold the bond at rupees then 2000. So then he will hold the bond of the price value of the bond is 2000 rupees. If the rate of interest is going down to 5%, 10 to 5%, then to get the same amount of return, that the price of bond that will be increased, then 2000. So what happens that as R decreases, price of bond increases. It's a simple law. Okay, so that's why there is an inverse relationship between the price of bond and rate of interest and the price of bond. Okay, so what would happen that if R, suppose if let's say that R increases, then price of bond decreases. If the price of bond decreases, then the bond price becomes very cheaper. Then what the asset holders will do? Asset holders will purchase more and more bonds because now the price of bond becomes very cheap. Okay, it's going down. So the demand for bonds increases. Demand for bonds increases. Now, if the demand for bond increases, then the asset holder, they will put their asset in form of bond. Then the speculative demand for money is decreasing. Then speculative demand for money, which is denoted by L, as I said, that decreases. Speculative demand for money decreases. L decreases. Okay. So what we understand from here that as R increases, L decreases. So there is an inverse relationship between the rate of interest and the speculative demand for money. Okay. Now once again, that if this is opposite, suppose R decreases. If R decreases, then price of bond increases. If price of bond increases, then demand for bond decreases. If the demand for bond decreases, so people are not willing to buy the bond, then they would like to hold their asset in idle cash balance. Then the speculative demand for money increases. So we see that there is an inverse relationship between the rate of interest and speculative demand for money. So we can write it down like this. So therefore, speculative demand for money, this is a function of the rate of interest. And what kind of function? That here, and we can see that dl by dr, that is less than 0. Because if r increases, then this will decrease. So, or vice versa. That's why dl by dr is negative. So from here, that we can see that 3 situations will arise from here. So what are those 3 situations arising? So let's see the 3 situations. What 3 situations will arise? So situation situation 1 or case 1. Case 1, that if rate of interest is lying between minimum and maximum, then what will happen? That dl by dr, that is less than 0. That when the rate of interest is more than minimum but less than maximum. So what happens? That in this case, that the asset holders will hold their asset, some asset in the form of bonds and some asset in the form of idle cash balance. So here the asset holders will hold their asset, will hold their some assets in form of bonds and some assets in form of idle cash balance. This is okay. Now case 2 situation, that dl by dr, this becomes 0 when that r is equal to r max. That means if the rate of interest, what I told you, that if the rate of interest increases, then the price of bond decreases. If the price of bond decreases, demand for bond increases. If the demand for bond increases, people are holding their asset, that what in the form of bonds. So the speculative demand for money is reducing, and in this way, that if the R increases, then the speculative demand for money decreases, and if the R reaches to the maximum level, then the speculative demand for money will become 0. So there will be no change in the speculative demand for money DL. This numerator part would be 0. This one is the maximum, rate of interest is the maximum. Okay, and but the numerator is 0 by anything, that will be also 0. So why this becomes 0? Because R is equal to R max. When rate of interest is maximum, then the entire asset will be held in form of bonds. Okay, so entire asset will hold in form of bond. Okay. Case 3. Case 3, dl by dr. This is infinite. When r is equal to r mean. R equal to R mean. That means what I told you that if rate of interest decreases, then the speculative demand for money increases. So suppose rate of interest decreases, and it goes to the reaches to the minimum point. Then what will happen? If it reaches to the minimum point, then speculative demand for money that will increase. That means the people, they will hold their entire asset in form of idle cash. They will not purchase any bond, because the price of bond is now very higher. They are not willing to keep their asset in form of bond. They will hold their entire asset in form of liquid cash balance, idle cash balance. Okay. So if they will hold their entire asset in idle cash balance, so there will be no demand for bond. If there is no demand for bond, there is no question of change in the price of bond. And if there is no question of change in the price of bond, so there is no question of change in the rate of interest. So this is not going to change further. So this will become unchanged. This will be zero, denominator part. So if anything by zero, that will be always infinity. Okay. So dl by dr is infinity. In this case, that entire assets hold in form of idle cash balance. Okay, idle cash balance. So we understand these three situations, that what happens. Now, if we draw the diagram for these three cases, then what would happen is for this diagram to see the diagram will be like this. We draw the diagram here. Here we are considering the rate of interest. Here the speculative demand for money. It is like this. This situation is called the R equal to R max. This situation is called the R equal to R max. R equal to R max. And this situation is called the R equal to R mean. So what happens? What I told the first case, in between R mean and R max, that the asset holder will keep some asset in form of asset bonds and some asset in form of the liquid cash balance. And there's an inverse relationship, that is at R equal to R max, the entire assets will hold in form of bonds. So here speculative demand for money, if R equal to R max, speculative demand for money becomes zero. So it is touching at this point. R equal to R mean, what happens? That the entire asset will hold in form of the idle cash balances. R equal to R mean will not fall further. Okay. This situation is also called the liquidity trap. It's a very, very important part, that this situation, the third situation, this one, this situation is also called the liquidity trap. The question may come that explain the liquidity trap. What is liquidity trap? Then you need to explain the case number 3, that when the rate of interest is minimum, then the entire asset will be held in form of the idle cash balances. Okay, so there is a trap. The entire asset now hold in form of liquid cash balance. So it gets in a trap. Okay, it falls in a trap. All the liquid asset falls in a trap. So it is called that is the reason it is called the liquidity trap. And the rate of interest is not going to fall further, because the people are not buying the bonds. Price of bond is not changing. Rate of interest is not going to change. Okay. So this is the liquidity trap situation. Now we are going to draw the LM curve in a 4-quadrant diagram. So 4-quadrant diagram, just like in our IS curve, that we will be drawing we have already drawn the four quadrant diagram for drawing the IS curve. So similarly here we will be drawing the four quadrant diagram for drawing the Elim curve. So let's see this one, four quadrant diagram. So here we will be drawing a four quadrant diagram for drawing the Elim curve. Now there are, suppose there are quadrant 1, there are second quadrant, the third quadrant, the fourth quadrant. Fourth quadrant we have. Okay. Now what we do that in which quadrant we measure what? That here we measure Y, here we measure rate of interest. Rate of interest is related to the L, and this is the total transaction demand for money, MT. Okay. So what kind of relation with R and L? There is an inverse relation we have seen, just that we have seen this case here. Since we have considered L this side, that's why we are drawing this curve in this way. This is for the speculative demand curve. Speculative demand curve. Okay. This is R equal to R max, R equal to R max equation. Now, transaction demand for money, total transaction demand for money, it is starting from the origin, and upward sloping, straight line, it is upward sloping because MT we are measuring along this side, so it looks like diagonal, it is not actually the downward, it is an upward sloping diagonal. Okay. Now in the third quadrant, we will be drawing a 45-degree line with each axis. Create 45-degree line with this axis 45-degree line. Here it will also create a 45-degree line. Here 45-degree line, 45 degree. Here also created 45 degree on each. That 45-degree line, because here that if we add MT geometrically, if we add transaction demand for money, total transaction demand for money, and the speculative demand for money, then we will be getting the total demand for money in the economy. Okay, so that is geometrical summation that I will be showing here how it will be done. Now in first quadrant, what we will draw in the first quadrant? In the first quadrant, we will be drawing the Lm curve. We will be drawing the Lm curve. So how to draw the Lm curve in the first quadrant? So here it is the MT, transaction demand, total transaction demand. Now let's say that the first case that suppose income is Y1. At Y1 level of income, what will happen? When the income is Y1, then the total transaction demand for money would be OA. Okay, because transaction demand for money is a function of Y. So if the national income is Y1, OY1, then the total transaction demand for money OA. Now, if the total transaction demand for money is OA, then how much would be the speculative demand for money? Total demand for money is equal to the total transaction demand for money plus total speculative demand for money. Remember these things, that total demand for money is equal to total transaction demand for money plus speculative demand for money. If the speculative demand is OA, then how much will be the speculative demand for money? So we will come this side, we will come this one. So this one say OA, this is OB. OB will be the speculative demand for money. So OA, this is the transaction demand for money, total transaction demand for money. OB is the total speculative demand for money. Combining this, we get the total demand for money. So if this is the speculative demand for money is OB amount, then how much will be the rate of interest? So we go above this one, this side. So for this amount, rate of interest would be this. So let's say rate of interest is R1. Rate of interest is R1. So That means for this amount of speculative demand for money, OB amount of speculative demand for money, rate of interest will be R1. Okay. So if this is the rate of interest, so to maintain the money market equilibrium, now this total demand for money, that is equal to the total supply of money. Total supply of money is actually supply of money is done by the Reserve Bank of India, that is a central bank of any country. In India, it is a Reserve Bank of India, and total supply of money is given. We assume the total supply of money is given. That means total demand for money is equal to the total supply of money, and that is the money market equilibrium. Money market equilibrium means what? Total demand for money should be equal to total supply of money. And then, so for OR1 amount of rate of interest, and when the national income is OY1, then the money market will be in equilibrium. So we get this coordinate. So say we get R1, Y1, this one. Okay. Now that if we consider that another income, level of income, let's say that another level of income is Y2. Then how much should be the total transaction demand for money? If total national income increases, then naturally the transaction demand for money also increases. So this becomes, say, OC is the, so it increased total transaction demand for money. And if the total transaction demand for money OC, then total speculative demand for money, that will decrease, say OD. Okay, because total demand for money is the summation of these two. If this one increases, this one should decrease. So now we join this one, OC plus OD is the total demand for money, which is equal to the total supply of money. So that maintains the money market in equilibrium. Now for this amount of speculative demand, OD amount of speculative demand, how much of rate of interest is here in the market? So we move upward. This side, rate of interest will be R2. R2. So rate of interest increases. So there is an inverse relation. Okay. So now that means we get another combination of rate of interest and income, that is R2 and Y2. So that means we are getting, in this way we can get a lot of coordinates. Okay. So all these coordinates that represents the money market equilibrium or these different combination of rate of interest and Y, national income, that gives the money market in equilibrium. So if we join all these points, then we will get an upward sloping diagram, this one, like this. But remember one thing, that this one you will be stretching like this, but this one at R equal to R mean, this one would be like this, parallel to this axis, and then upward sloping, okay, and then once again at R equal to R max, it will be vertical. It will be vertical like this. So here like this. So three different actually the phases. One is the parallel to this axis, then upward sloping, and then it becomes vertical. You can see the three different, here the parallel to this axis, then upward sloping, and then it becomes vertical. This one. So this becomes the LM curve. Now why these three shapes, that I will describe in my next video. But for the timing, what you understand that what is the definition of the LM curve? What is the definition of the LM curve? If we define the LM curve, that it is a locus of different combination. You look at the different combination, this one combination, this another combination. It is a locus of different combination of national income and rate of interest, which keeps money market in equilibrium. Okay, this is the way that we have to derive the money market equilibrium LM curve. Okay, or then now as I said that why this LM curve looks like this, that we will explain in the later part. These three actually the shape, this upward sloping and the vertical. So I hope that this concept is clear to you, that how to derive the LM curve, okay, and the money market equilibrium. In my next video, we will describe that general equilibrium where the product market and money market, both the markets are operating together, and how the general equilibrium is achieved. If you are having any doubts, then you can write in the chat box. I will try to clarify your doubt. So thank you very much for watching this video.